Hi there. The last lecture we have studied about the registers, how it stored the data. As we know that register actually stored the data of 1 bit, and in this class we will study about the classification of registers and we will study in detail about the register individually. So the registers are classified as 4 types as we know: serial input, serial output, serial input, parallel output, parallel input, parallel output, and parallel input, serial output. So these are the basic 4 types of registers. As we know that all the registers are actually made up of the flip-flops, let us consider each register is made up of at least 4 flip-flops. Let us consider this consists of 4 flip-flops, right? Flip-flop 1, 2, 3, 4, and all are D flip-flop, right? So if I am giving data here, a serially bit of pulse like 1 1 0 1 individually. First I give 1, then I give 0, then I 1, then 1. So likewise, the first data that is called LSB is moving to the D1. Then the next clock pulse, this data is moving to this, and this data is moving to this, and this data is moving to here, and here it is going to out. For each clock pulse, one data is moving from one flip-flop to another flip-flop, and here you can see we are giving input serially and we are getting input parallelly. So this is the graphical representation of CISO register. Similarly, if you want to make SIPU, how it's look? It's like 4 flip-flop and all are made up of D flip-flop and are giving serial input, okay, 1101, and we are taking output somewhere here, okay. So you are giving serial input and getting output from each flip-flop. That is why it is called as serial input, parallel output. That is nothing but SIPO. Similarly, if you give data parallelly, like we have 4 flip-flop 1 2 3 4, and we are giving data parallelly here, 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 and here, and we are taking the data serially from here. This is called parallel input but serial output. Serial output. Also you can give input data in parallel format and taking out the data in parallel format. Let us consider this is 1, 2, 3, and 4 flip-flop, and we are giving the input here, 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 and here, and you are taking the output from here, 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 and here. You can see here each individual bits or each individual input bit is passing through individual flip-flops, and from those flip-flop it is getting out. So you can see this is parallel input and parallel output. So this is the pictorial representation of all the registers. Let us study about serial input, serial output register clearly, so we will get an idea about the registers. Okay, so this is the CISO shift register. Using the flip-flop, we have created CISO shift register. You can ask me, sir, CISO means serial input and serial output. As my data input are serial and output are also serial, then why you are using this? Because we need output as serial which is available in the input, then what is the use of this? The simple answer for this, for example, you are having a stream of input data, but at the same time you are not using it, okay. That means while the data is available, you are not using this. You want to use after some time. That means if the input takes some delay, after some time, if you want to use, then you can pass those input data through the flip-flop or through some delay flip-flop. So make all the input data to hold for some time or to store for some time. Then after you use this. So here you are taking 4 D flip-flop named as D0, D1, D2, D3. I mean flip-flop 1, flip-flop 0, flip-flop 1, flip-flop 2, flip-flop 3. And you can see here we are giving a single clock pulse which is connected to all the flip-flop. So you can say it is synchronized clock. The clock pulse will be like this continuously, right? And as we know that flip-flop always take edge triggering. So either it is rising edge or falling edge. But in the picture, we represent a triangle and like this, so that this is the rising edge. If we represent like this with a bubble, then it's called falling edge. So don't bother about that. Anyhow, we are giving rising edge triggering. Here, we are giving input to the D3 a serial letter 1101, and this one is my LSB and this one is my MSB. That means first LSB go into the flip-flop. Okay, let's see what happening. Before starting any operation, let me clear all the flip-flop. Clear means output all the flip-flop to 0. That means output of each flip-flop is 0. So I can get Q3 0, Q2 0, Q1 0, Q0 0, which are written here. So before applying any clock, that means in 0th clock, output is 0. Now I have applied the first clock. So the D flip-flop work is, when it get a clock, it route the input to the output with some delay. That means input is going to output. So consider the flip-flop 0. For this flip-flop, input is D0, output is Q0. And I told you input D0 is connected to Q1. So when this is Q1, this is Q2, this is Q3. So when it is clear, Q1 is 0 and now D0 is 0 because both are connected together. So when I apply clock, D0 is routed to Q0. So Q0 becomes 0. Yes or no? Yes. Similarly, for this flip-flop 1, this is routed to this place. Now Q2 is connected to D1. So for first flip-flop, for the first clock pulse, this 0 is routed to Q1. Yes or no? So Q1 becomes 0. Similarly, this is routed to this place. So 0. Yes or no? That means this 0 rotated here, this 0 going here, this 0 going here. Okay. Now time of this flip-flop 3. You can see here input is not 0. Instead of input 0, here input having LSB of the data, that is 1. So this is my 1101 data and this one is routed here. Okay. So my Q3 becomes 1 and remaining are 0. Yes. So this is for my first clock pulse. When I apply the second clock pulse, again the previous one is routed to next one. Q1 is routed to Q0. So you can see Q1 to Q0 means it is 0. So this is routed na. For this, Q2 is routed to here. So Q2 is 0 previously. Now it becomes 0. And for this, Q2, Q3 should be routed and Q3 is here 1. So 1 is routed here. So this becomes 1. And for Q3, input is a data, second data. So 0 is routed here. So this becomes 0. You clear? Okay. So again, if I apply third clock pulse, Q0 is output, Q1 is input. So Q1 is 0, 0 is routed, that means Q0 becomes 0. Similarly, for Q1 output, Q2 is input and 1 is coming here. Similarly, Q3 is input, Q2 is output. So this is 0 here. And for Q3 input is D3, output is Q3. Here input is the data. So data 1 is going here. This is for third clock pulse. For the fourth clock pulse, what happened? When I apply the fourth clock pulse, this rotate to this place, this rotate to this place, this go to this place, and last data go to this place. Similarly, na? So here it was 1. This one is rotated to this. So this becomes 1. That means Q0, Q1 is rotated to Q0. Again Q2 is rotated to Q1. This becomes 0. And Q3 rotated to Q2. This becomes 1. And the last one Q3. And this data is going out. So this becomes 1. So you can see here, my data is 1101. Yes or no? And I am also getting 1101 in each registers. That means my all the 4-bit data are stored in individual register. That means to store 4-bit, in a, I need 4 clock pulse. Yes or no? So now my data is stored. So I can say, very important note, to store n bit in SISO, we need n clock pulse. Clear? Now the data is stored. I want to take it out. So you can see Q naught is 1, already it came. So in the 4th clock pulse, Q naught is giving this LSB. So LSB already come out. So up to this is called storing. Okay, up to this is called storing. Now I want to take one data individually because Q naught is my output line, so I already got LSB 1. On the fifth clock pulse, this is coming here 0, this is coming here 1, this is coming here 1. Don't bother about this. Okay, so the Q naught becomes 0, the second bit I recovered. Then for 6th clock pulse, this is going here 1, this is going here 1, and don't bother about this and this. Okay, so I got 1 here, so 1 0 1 I recovered. And for the 7th clock pulse, I got this one here, this don't care about this thing. So last 4 bit I recovered. That means to store I need 4 clock pulse, but to retrieve I need 3 clock pulse because one data is already retrieved while storing. So this is the LSB. So I can write to retrieve n bit stored data, we need n minus 1 clock pulse. Okay, so to retrieve n bit stored data, we need n minus 1 clock pulse. So this is all about the working principle of serial input and serial output. Study about serial input, parallel output, shift register, which also use D flip-flop. So there is no difference in circuit diagram of SI-SO and SI-PO, but the simple change is, so we are applying input in D3 and getting output in Q0 for SI-SO, but here in SI-PO we are giving input to D3, but we are taking output from here, and here. So the output from here becomes LSB and the output from here becomes MSB. Okay, as like my SISO, I am also applying a synchronized clock and which is positive age triggered. So before that, before starting anything, I told you I have cleared all the flip-flop. So all the output of flip-flop becomes 0. That means for 0th clock pulse, clear. For 0th clock pulse, each output becomes 0. Okay, that means here it is 0, here it is 0, here it is 0, and here it is 0. Okay, when I apply first clock, each input is routed to output. That means this 0 is going to here, this 0 is going to here, this 0 is going to here, but here input is 1 and this 1 is going to here. So I can see my Q0 is 0, Q1 is 0, Q2 is 0, and this becomes 1 because my input is 1 1 0 1 and this 1 is routed to here. So each individual bits are routed. Yes. So this is for first clock pulse. Again, so what happened? This becomes 1 and remain everything becomes 0. For the second clock pulse, again input is routed to output. This 0 going to here, this 0 is going to here, this 1 is going to here, and this 0 second bit is going to here. So I can write for the second clock pulse, this going to here, that is 0, this is coming here, that is 0, this 1 is coming here, this is 1, and this 0 is coming here, this is 0. This is the output of second clock pulse, so I can write this is 0 and my Q2 becomes 1. Clear? And for the third clock pulse, same thing is happening. So this 0 is coming here, this 1 is coming here, this 0 is coming here, and the third bit is coming here, that is 1. So I can write this is my 1, this is my 0, this is my 1, again this is my 0. Again I apply the fourth clock pulse, 4, and similarly this 1 is going to here, this 0 coming here, this 1 is coming here, and the MSB is coming here, that is 1. So I can see here it is not 0, is 1 is coming here, 1, and here you can see 1101, which is my input, is already takes its position in each flip-flop. Q3 is 1, Q2 is 1, Q1 becomes 0, and Q0 becomes 1, which is not 1101, which is nothing but my input. So it is very clear that to store 4-bit information, I need 4 clock pulse. And to take the output, we need to connect the wire from here, 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 here. That means all the values are already available. So without applying any clock pulse, we can retrieve 1, we can retrieve 1, we can retrieve 0, we can retrieve 1. So to retrieve this, we do not need any more clock pulse. So we can write, as our data is already occupy this output place and we are directly taking from this place, so we no need to apply any clock pulse. So we can write to retrieve n-bit stored data if the data is stored already. Okay, so to retrieve n-bit stored data in SIPO, we need 0 clock pulse. So this is all about the serial input and parallel output register. Let us study about the parallel input serial output, which is also made up of D flip-flop. Here I am taking 4 D flip-flop and each flip-flop is getting synchronized pulse. And this circuit diagram will also look like the previous 2 shift registers, and the little change is, and as we are giving parallel input, so input line should be here. So here I am giving input, here I am giving input, here I am giving input, and here I am giving output. So here I am getting serial output. Okay, that means if I want to give 1101 as my input, so here this one is LSB, this one is LSB, and this one is MSB. So I can give 1 here, 0 here, and 1 here. So this is my LSB and this is my MSB. Okay, so this is my input data. And you can see previously, before applying anything, I make all the flip-flop reset. That means output of each flip-flop becomes 0. So I can write Q3, Q1, Q3, Q2, Q1 and Q0 all becomes 0 when I reset it. Okay, and when I apply the first clock pulse 1, and I told you D flip-flop always route the input to the output with some time delay. And we can see the data is applied to all the flip-flop input. So these are the data 1101 is already applied. When I apply the first clock pulse, you can see this flip-flop routed this data to Q0. So Q0 becomes 1. I can write here Q0 becomes 1. Again, this flip-flop routed this data to Q1. So Q1 becomes 0. Q1 becomes 0. And this flip-flop rotate this one to output, so Q2 becomes 1. And this flip-flop will do same thing, and this one is rotated to Q3, so Q3 becomes 1. So you can see 1101, which is my data, is already stored. So I can see this is my data, which is stored in 1 clock pulse. We can say to store n-bit data in PISO register, we need only 1 clock pulse. And I want to retrieve here, I can see in Q0, while storing in Q0 I am getting the LSB. So this is not nothing but my LSB. So we already got one data out. Okay, so one data LSB is already out. Okay, if I apply the next clock pulse, what happens? Same thing, rotate thing happen. Na? Input is rotated to output. So this is output, this is input. So 0 is coming here, 1 is coming here, 1 is coming here. Don't care about this. This is the second clock. This is the second clock pulse. And for the third clock pulse, this one is coming here, this one is coming here. This you don't care, this you don't care. So while storing, I got one. That is LSB. So this is the virtual fast clock pulse retrieving. So this is the second clock pulse for storing, but the first clock pulse for retrieving. Na? So for the first clock pulse, I am getting 0. For the second clock pulse, I am getting 1. And when I apply third clock pulse for retrieving or fourth clock pulse continuously, then this one is coming here, this don't care is coming here, and don't care all the things. So this one I can come here, so I can retrieve all the data. So we can see to retrieve all the 4 bit in SI in PISO register, we need 1, 2, 3 clock pulse. So I can write to retrieve n bit data in PISO register, we need n-1 clock pulse. Okay. Let us study about the PIPO, that is parallel input, parallel output shift register, which is also made up of D flip-flop. Here I am taking 4 D flip-flop, and we are applying synchronized clock to every flip-flop. And as my data are parallel input, and we are also taking parallel output, so I can apply the data, input to the D and output from Q. So this, remember, is these two things. If my data is 1101, so I can apply all input data to the D. So this is my LSB, this is my MSB, this is my LSB. Okay, LSB input. So the red line indicate input. This is my MSB. This is input. So the red line indicate input. So I can give input here. I can give input here. So my input is 1101. So here it is 1. Here it is 1. Here it is 0, and here it is 1. So this is my input. And the output I am taking from Q3. I am taking from Q2. Taking from Q1 and Q0. So this is my LSB. This is my MSB. So the blue line indicates the output. Okay. So before storing, I am saying before doing anything, I reset it. So each output, it is Q3, Q2, Q1, Q0 becomes 0, 0, 0 and 0. And then I applied the input as 1101. Then I apply single clock pulse. For the first clock pulse, I told in D flip-flop, when a clock applied, input is applied to the output. That means for each flip-flop, here D3 is rotated to Q3. So Q3 becomes 1. I can write Q3 becomes 1. For this flip-flop, D2 becomes Q2. So Q2 becomes 1. Again for this flip-flop, D1 becomes Q1. So Q1 is equal to 0. And for this flip-flop, D0 becomes Q0. So Q0 is equal to 1, which is nothing but my data. So we can clear that to store 4 bit data in PIPO, we need 1 clock pulse. And as all the output Q3, Q2, Q1 and Q0, which is already available, so to retrieve all this 4 bit data, we no need to apply any clock pulse. Okay, so we can write to store n bit in PIPO register, we need only 1 clock pulse. Yes or no? And to retrieve the same stored information of n bit in the PIPO format or PIPO register, we need 0 clock pulse. So this is all about detailed study of 4 type of register. Thank you so much.